Off the Record is a show from 88.1 WKNC in which DJs talk with artists about everything from their music to upcoming tours to former bandmates' birthdays. Make sure to follow WKNC on SoundCloud and Tumblr so you never miss a beat. Enjoy.
Splash Jordan, thank you so much for being in studio today. You and I and WKNC are doing an event coming up on Monday, September 9th. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing, what we're hoping to draw people in for, and why you do this in general. So first and foremost, if you'd like to describe who you are and what your podcast is, that would be fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me up here. I appreciate it. I'm a content creator, producer, also music A&R. Host a podcast in the Raleigh, in the Triangle area. It's called The Verdict Podcast. We discuss matters of, we discuss legal matters. We discuss national, local court cases. We also have several legally aimed segments on the show, basically overall just trying to remove the stigma of going to jail and trying to highlight the actions taken by individuals who haven't let those circumstances hold them back. You know, they've gone on to be moguls, musicians. They are, starting brands and, being involved in their community.
And how long has this podcast series been running?
Actually, we just crossed the 2-year mark in June.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't remember myself. I just randomly checked about 2 weeks ago, and I saw that we were past our anniversary, and I thought, oh man, we're doing it 2 years now.
Yeah.
So 2 years coming up on just under 80 episodes and about 10,000 downloads.
So with what frequency do you release podcasts?
Well,
I know that face.
Right. If you're asking me, then I'm going to say every Friday at noon.
Okay.
Every Friday at noon.
But if I'm not asking you?
Well, if I'm being honest, sometimes, it's noon is more like 2:30ish.
Yeah.
And Friday could become Saturday morning. We're having fun with it. I don't hold myself to that, although I do like to hold myself to that because I know people are looking, and consistency is key. But, sometimes, it's a late night.
It'd be like that sometimes,
right?
And things come up, and 2 years is what?
So it's a total 180 from where it started. It started a buddy of mine. I moved to Raleigh from Charlotte. A buddy of mine who also moved to Raleigh from Charlotte. We were doing a show. It's called The Verdict, but we didn't speak about anything that was related in a courtroom or police encounters or legal matters at all. And so went through a number of host changes and a bunch of, breaks and, hey, I might just quit this. And then, eventually I kind of, found a team that, it worked a little bit better. And then I started to, think more, develop the audience more, the target base a little bit more. And so now, I can say that there are, a number of individuals in Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte who do support, do come to our events as well as, engage. So, thank you to everybody who does listen.
Yeah, and that was actually my follow-up question. So perfect segue. What kind of events do you do regarding The Verdict?
Well, we're doing an event.
Yeah, perfect time to promo what we're going to do.
Right. So live episodes is the easiest way to describe it. But and I'm actually doing an event partnering with WKNC. On September the 9th at NC State. It's a free event, to come out and kind of interact with the podcast. But we also have
open to the public, not just NC State students.
Right, open to the public. Anybody can come out, and not only will you get to see premium podcasting experience, as I call it, but there'll be some treats and prizes and contests as well. And that's one thing that we're known for is the contests that we do, the prizes that we give away. It's not what you would typically come to expect from listening to a podcast, but I like to reward those people who do listen to my show.
Right.
I really appreciate that. So maybe you could win this $50 Cash App drawing, or maybe you win these concert tickets. In addition,
just get a free meal.
Right. Yeah. Free stuff. For my fans, because that's how I feel about them.
Absolutely.
So in addition to that, I do a semi-annual variety show, A Sight to See. I'm preparing for a second iteration of that, where it's different mediums performing on the same stage: podcasters, musicians, dancers, even magicians in some cases. So just try to keep things. I like this market for the diversity. And so I like to keep, the type of content that I'm producing diverse as well.
Fantastic. Could you give an example of the kind of content that you put out? I know that you said that oftentimes you'll have like legal oriented, but not legally backed, for example, discussions. Behind the scenes, you and I have talked about the things that you work on the Verdict, but for the WKNC audience, what are some examples of like show ongoing themes?
Well, so particular one, Victim or Nah, is a segment where, we discuss the perceived victimhood of someone who's, publicly stating that they've been wronged. And, in some cases, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but the evidence suggests that there may be some foul play or that there may be some ulterior motive. So we're kind of just discussing like, what really happened in certain sensitive, incidents. Not to make light of it by any means, but we're not lawyers also. So, we have no knowledge legally or anything, but we're just giving our opinion as people who are in the community. Is
this limited to just like triangle ongoings?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I do like to localize the content just so that, people.
Relevancy.
Right. But if there's something that's more relevant as far as discussion wise, then we would obviously like to go with that. The more bizarre and out there where it's like, okay, recently a young woman lied about being a trans model, but it's lied about being
Did
trans.
That really happen?
Right, that actually happened, and then she faced a lot of backlash.
It wasn't the first Victoria's Secret trans model, was it?
No, it was she modeled for, her name was Carissa Pinkston. She modeled for Fenty.
Interesting.
Right. And so there was, some backlash about that, obviously. And so,
I can't believe I didn't catch that on my radar.
Right. And then she tried to defend, it was just a lot. So, those are some of the topics that we discuss. And it's like, hey, what's going on here? What led you to, act under these circumstances? And then I would say,
man, that's a whole can of worms. Like my mind is turning now.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I spent a lot of time digging. In fact, I spent so much time digging through the internet to find these stories that another buddy of mine and I collaborate on another podcast that's just about what we find digging through the internet to find content for our shows. So it's called Socially Acceptable. But I would say the more famous or popular segments are jail tales, where we're highlighting an individual's true story behind bars. In many cases, some of these people are in jail, making a phone call, or I'm making,
that was my next question.
Right. Working things out. There's some, I'll just say we're making phone calls.
Right.
And so we're communicating, with individuals who are in jail right now when they're giving their, actual story about, how they're there, what lessons they've learned, and then what they want other people to hear. And then, of course, the main, very, very fun segment, Two Truths and a Con, where, three bizarre, legal headlines, and I have my co-host try to, guess which one I made up. So I try to trip them up, and I more times than not I do trip them up.
Sick.
Just because I've been around them, so I know what how to kind of
there's a learning curve to it. Yeah. And
Right.
just circling back to jail tales, that's actually particularly relevant to the WKNC audience, or at the very least our staff members, simply because we get fan mail from the NC Central Prison like all the time. They are big fans of WKNC. They're like right down the road from us, so they're always listening in. And particularly several of the inmates, or I would say like a large degree of them, are listeners of our Chainsaw Rock format, which is like our heavy metal punk, like a little like on the darker side of the music spectrum. And they send us mail all the time. We've had this several years ongoing Friday night request rock block where our DJ Uncle Paul, who used to be an NC State student but is now just an alumni who still works with us, still runs his segment, he gets weekly fan mail from these prisoners and like reads their requests on air or their letters, and then plays the songs that they want, and they tune in, they hear what they want. And it's that little bit of community interaction for people who like don't typically get that because they are incarcerated.
Right.
Furthermore, we just have a couple heavy metal DJs who don't really do a lot of inmate interaction. However, they still get fan mail and they'll play those songs every now and then. I myself have gotten inmate fan mail. Just
Nice.
I don't do a heavy metal segment, but one of my best friends and my coworkers does. And she was like, "Hey, I'm going out of town. Will you cover my shift for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I will." and I got fan mail from it. Like,
Oh, nice.
like they be listening to us.
That's pretty cool. And one thing I know is that a large number of inmates just want to do their time and just want to
Get it done,
it done, reflect, not bother anybody. So they still need things to keep them entertained and grounded in what's going on, and kind of keep their mind off of other things. So
It's very easy for people to treat inmates with the same like out of sight, out of
Right.
mind concept that you do with like your chores, like
Right.
if I'm not thinking about it, I don't have to do it. But like these people, their lives are still going on
Right.
despite the fact that they've been uprooted and relocated.
Right. I know that a lot the program escapes my mind now that I was involved in was sending books to inmates, just from an approved book list. Many I was finding at Goodwill or a used bookstore.
Right.
And they appreciate that.
Yeah.
Having something different to read. If someone who's in there for a period of years, they might have read all the
books in the library.
All the books in the library, all 14 of them. Getting a new book in there is like, this is like getting a new TV channel for some people.
Absolutely. And your point about saying like all 14 of them, like the prison system in the United States really doesn't have a great rehabilitation program, but like engagement for
Right.
the inmates, other than like manual labor, which
Right.
many of them aren't like accustomed to already.
Right.
You can't just like stereotype inmates to like these big buff burly dudes who like
Right.
killed someone and are in there forever. Like,
Right.
it ain't always like that.
Right.
Yeah.
They're in there though.
They're
Those
in there.
people- yeah, those
They're
people-
in there, but like they're not all the same.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, same clothes, but that's about it.
Right. Everybody's got a different story. Everybody's learning a different lesson. And for some people on the outside, hearing that lesson from a person who's there might, mean a little bit more as far as, okay, whatever decisions I have to make or whatever choices I'm facing.
Right.
This has hopefully influenced me. Yeah, some of these people we're accustomed to fast money and a certain lifestyle, but it all came tumbling down due to X, Y, and Z. So if you don't want to hear it from your parents or from TV or from police, hear it from someone who did what you were attempting to do, and this is what happened. And almost in all situations, I don't get an excuse or it wasn't me. It was, man, I made a terrible decision. I hope nobody does what I did. I hope that people, try a different route. In almost every situation where I have someone that's, that's their stance. They never passing the blame or, shirking responsibility.
So, man, I could ask you like 10 million questions, but my next question would be, do you think that those comments that you get from inmates are saying like, I made a terrible decision, I hope no one does it, do you think that that's a conclusion that they've come to of their own mind, or something that's kind of been drilled into them by the system?
I would say both. It's being drilled into them, but what they're equating, the number one thing is that I don't have access to, I can't go to my boy's house. I can't do all the things I used to love doing because I'm here.
Right.
And I got here because, I got caught doing something I shouldn't have done. And I knew I shouldn't have done it. And, if you're about to do something like that, then think twice. Because if you get caught, you'll come here and you won't be able to, call your mom. You won't be able to see your friends. You won't be able to go to your
and that's just
prison.
like the top layer of things you can't do.
Right. Exactly.
Not being around like your dog, and I'm not talking about like Fred, I mean like your family pet
Right.
is like the least of your worries.
Right. So, and then there's, you're not making any money, and then your life is still going on.
Yeah.
So, bills are piling up in your name if you were
got kids,
right?
yeah.
You have kids probably. So, that time away from reality, is something that a lot of people, it's like the number one thing that, they regret. It's like, I don't want to be here. I want to be back in my life. Even struggling was better than being here, because jails, it's not a fun place.
Absolutely not.
I don't know if you've seen the show 60 Days In. It comes on A&E.
I don't think so, no. I actually, I recently cut my cable, so.
Okay. Well, it was a show about normal people who went to jail for 60 days, and they kind of reported back, and the public gets to see what it's like inside the jail. I actually had two people from that show on my podcast, and, they gave kind of some behind the scenes, well, this is what was going on with the producers and stuff. But, yeah, I was in there, and I was kind of nervous about, who was around me.
Yeah. So would you say that the verdict takes a bit of like a scared straight angle, or is it more of just a, I guess like just a baseline non-biased report?
We try to be non-biased. And I think that
I guess a better question would be, is the goal of the verdict to say this is what jail is like, or is it more so just to share a variety of experiences?
I would say the goal is to entertain.
Interesting. Okay.
That our goal is to entertain. And I watch courtroom TV and I watch ID Discovery and, those types of information all day long. So a podcast about that type of stuff, while it wasn't immediately clear to me, later on it became apparent that that's was something I, if I wasn't going to do a podcast about anime, I should probably be doing a podcast about, a courtroom, docuseries and stuff like that.
I mean, why not both? Maybe not in the same podcast, but get on that anime podcast.
I should, because I could do, I could do a very good anime podcast. Nice. That's me all day, every day. So I want to entertain, and I want to bring information that you haven't necessarily heard, and I want to bring a viewpoint that you may have not considered. I have my co-hosts who typically they're going to go the route that you would expect a person to go. And I like to argue against that, common thinking a lot of times, just so that people who don't feel like, however the media says you should feel about it, or feeling like, okay, everybody's getting a voice, or at least trying to get, some representation, in some fashion, so that way it's not just what I hate is that when everybody agrees or says the same thing. So I like to see there be some discourse and some debate, at least.
Discourse makes interesting listening.
Right. So, I try to, even sometimes I have to, argue against how I'm actually feeling, but just because, my co-hosts feel very strongly in the same way, it's like, right. If I don't, then,
you gotta play the devil's advocate.
Right. Yeah, you have to. You have to.
Put aside your own biases or your own opinions just for the purpose of the podcast.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess that leads me to the ultimate purpose of this podcast that we're doing, being what type of experience do you hope to bring to the, for lack of a better descriptor, NC State audience? I'd
like to bring an opportunity to be heard. Mm-hmm. That's very important to me, being heard. I don't want to get off on tangent, but I don't feel heard a lot of times, right. Except in that setting where I know for a fact that people are pressing play to hear what I have to say. It makes me feel, empowered. Validated for sure. So I want to make other people feel that way. And, and speaking on things, there's been a lot of headlines in the media, a lot of things going on, and people are, if you go on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, people feel comfortable saying those things behind a phone or a screen. But we could also have this conversation, together. Mm-hmm. And that may, lead to having more conversations together. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I feel like that's, we can't stop fighting, if we don't talk. How are we going to stop fighting each other if we don't try to understand each other? We can try. You can feel how you feel politically or you're whatever. That's fine, but we can coexist. Yeah. And we can talk about it. And we can also, look at these examples in the media of how, our system is failing us and what changes, what areas we need. That's what the segments come from, is where these are areas that need change. Yeah. And, we can, I don't have the answers. So hopefully when I come here, I'll be talking to, generation of young minds, people who are much younger than me even, who have plans for the future, who will be future senators, future leaders of America. Hopefully somebody here will say something or will be, led to react in a different way after the show.
So I guess on a more specific line, what do we have planned for this?
Okay, all right. So
I'm gonna let you take the floor for this one, even though I know the answer.
Okay, so we'll have a abbreviated live episode of the show. We'll have some audience participation in various ways. We'll actually have some audience members come up doing Two Truths and a Con. Got some prizes to give away in that capacity. I don't want to give away anything too soon, but I've heard from what I've seen. You want to be in that room.
Oh, for sure.
You want to be in that room and you want to be playing. And then after that, we'll have a, community discussion and forum. But for the most part, and I've got a couple of people lined up as guests who have made a name in this area as being socialites, social media, stars. Yeah. So, we'll have, a few people come through and kind of give their experiences. But for the most part, I want to entertain the audience, provide them with something fun. I know the classes have just gotten started. The grind is just getting started for a lot of these students. So
these cogs are turning yet again.
Right. So hopefully, this will, pump you up and get you excited for, just some way to blow off steam. It'll be on a Monday night.
Yeah.
So it won't interfere with, your weekend plans.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, an opportunity to come out and meet some new people. You're just getting started.
And I definitely think this is something that students will be interested in because, as I'm sure you're aware, as a podcast creator yourself, like people listening to podcasts is like really big right now.
Right.
Maybe I was out of the loop for a few years because I was like younger or something, but I feel like everyone's into podcasts right now.
They are.
Yeah, and it could be just like the rise of like smartphones and just like easy access.
Right.
Anyone can essentially sit in front of a mic and be like, "Thank you for listening to my podcast.
Right.
Tune in next week." And
then the more and more celebrities who have a voice, may not be making movies or music as often. I know that big, person who turned me on to podcasting was Joe Budden. And before I listened to his show,
picture of Joe Rogan popped in my head first. I'm not gonna lie.
I listened to Joe Rogan as well, but they made it very easy for me. Before I listened to those shows, I thought it was very complicated.
Right.
But I saw what they were doing. They were just talking about what they wanted to talk about in a way that they were known for talking, and so it just clicked almost instantly. I maybe listened to like 5 of each, and then I was doing my own podcast. And
people are listening to podcasts in the way that people used to listen to the radio. Like you think about like friends and family gathering around the radio to hear like weekly installments of like a radio play or something.
Right.
Now like you and your friends can like listen to a podcast, come together and be like, "Did you just hear that new episode?"
Right.
Yeah.
And
so it's a natural transition.
It is. And even more to that point, aspect of podcasting that's taken off for me per se is like audio, not necessarily audiobooks. Narrative podcast.
That's valid too, though.
It is, and it's like just that listening to this. I listened to Marvel's Wolverine's podcast, and being in love with that character, hearing it in that way was so cool because it's a very visual character. But now I'm listening to these things. I'm listening to him slink around, and he's smelling, and then he makes a sound with his claws, and like in my mind, I'm like, I know what's happening, even though I can't see it. It's very cool for me. I think I love that. Oops, sorry. I love being able to. So even so, to the point it inspired me to do podcasts very similar to that that I'm working on as well. So I think that the easy access, the cost of podcasting has dropped tremendously, and then just more and more people with a voice taking up the medium. Before it was like very niche. Yeah. And everybody had a science fiction podcast or a or whatever.
Hell, you can listen to like Dungeons and Dragons, like not like a let's play thing, but like you can listen to people like going through the game, and like
that's pretty cool.
It is very cool. Like people will get their like guild together or whatever, and they'll like podcast them playing the game.
Oh, that is very cool. I've always wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, and
very cool. Highly recommend.
I can't find anyone who would want to play. Well, that's not true. There is some people I do know, but it's very hard for me.
It's hard to like get over that hump because like it's a very dense game. Like you got to set up your character, you got to put yourself into that mode. You have to imagine everything. Like get the dice.
I want to I'd love to give it a try. So it's on the list.
So Dungeons and Dragons is on the list. The Verdict Live podcast is on the list. So much stuff that people should try out and just check out.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yes, well, we are very excited to put this event together. Once again, for anyone who's listening, it is Monday, September 9th. It is going to be from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. roughly. We're going to have snacks. We're going to have live audience interaction. We're going to have guest speakers, lots of different ways that you can win prizes, and some very cool things that I will not announce at this point because you better be there to find out.
Yeah, you're going to want to be there.
Yeah, but we're going to have a lot of things going on. Once again, WKNC and The Verdict, September 9th, Monday night.
All right, see you there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being on this podcast with me, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, thanks for having me.